Narcissus was born of water and divine lineage, the child of a river god and a nymph. From the beginning, he was admired, not just for his beauty, but for the silence around him, a kind of magnetic distance. In myth, Narcissus turns away every admirer, not out of cruelty, but because nothing touches him deeply. He moves through the world as though his senses are turned inward, searching for something that isn't yet visible. His story is not just about beauty. It is about detachment, about being unable to connect, not only with others, but with himself. Symbolically, Narcissus represents a fractured identity, the kind that looks whole from the outside, but feels empty inside. The turning point in his story comes by a pool of water, clear, still, reflective. When Narcissus leans down to drink, he sees, perhaps for the first time, his own face. The water becomes a mirror, and in that mirror, he sees something perfect, something captivating. But here is the core of the story. What Narcissus falls in love with is not himself, but an image, a version, a projection, a symbol of self that can be seen but never touched. In this way, the pool represents more than water. It represents how we search for identity in the external, in mirrors, in photos, in social roles, in how others see us. But just like Narcissus, the more we try to grasp that version of ourselves, the more it slips away. Before Narcissus finds the pool, he is followed by Echo, a nymph that is cursed to only repeat what others have spoken. She is the symbol of repetition without expression, of longing without voice. She represents what happens when communication is reduced to imitation, when our truth becomes only an echo of someone else's. Echo longs to connect. Narcissus longs to find something real, but they cannot reach each other. And this is part of the tragedy. Both are isolated, not by fate, but by form. In a modern context, Echo reminds us of how often we speak without being heard, or listen without really understanding. And Narcissus reminds us of what happens when we are so absorbed in ourselves that the world becomes background noise. Today, the mirror is everywhere, not just in glass, but in phones, screens, comments, and curated profiles. We are surrounded by reflections of who we might be, how we should look, what we should become. Like Narcissus, we become fixated on our image, how we appear, how we are perceived. But identity is not found in appearance. It is experienced through connection. When we chase perfection, when we fall in love with a digital version of ourselves, we may find ourselves staring too long and forgetting to live. This myth asks, what are you really looking at? And what is it costing you to keep staring? In the myth, Narcissus slowly fades. He doesn't drown. He simply wastes away, transfixed by what he cannot have. The symbolic message here is about disconnection. When our sense of self becomes tied to something untouchable, superficial, we lose energy, direction, and presence. The longer we stare, the more real the illusion feels, and the less real we become. Narcissus doesn't die violently. He simply disappears. This happens to us in small ways every day. When we compare, when we perform, when we trade authenticity for approval. Over time, in the place where Narcissus once sat, a flower starts to bloom. Pale and bowed, always looking down into the water, the Narcissus flower is a lasting symbol of the myth and the lesson. It reminds us of the self that is forever drawn to its own reflection. But it also reminds us of the possibility for new growth. Something beautiful can emerge from fixation, even from sorrow or illusion. The flower does not chase the image. It simply exists. Symbolically, the flower may represent a soft truth that we can root ourselves again, that from the ashes of image obsession, identity can bloom in quieter ways. The myth of Narcissus is a reflection, a message from the still pool. We all want to be seen. We all carry images of ourselves that we hope are true. But to know who you really are, you must look inward, deep below the surface, not outward. You must feel, not just observe. The mirror can show you a version of yourself, but it cannot hold you or grow with you. Your identity is not what you post, it's what you protect, what you nurture, what you connect to, and what stays even when no one is looking. If you have ever felt lost in your own reflection, image, or looked to others for confirmation of who you're supposed to be, let this story remind you that the truest self does not live in the image. It lives in your breath, in your body, in the quiet choices you make when no one else is watching. If you are enjoying this story, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you would like to dive deeper into any of these topics, check out the recommended readings listed in the description box below. See you next time.